This is Robert Capuccio. Welcome to the Self-Help Antidote, a weekly dose of reason, perspective, and insight, where we challenge conventional thinking and explore authentic strategies and insights around personal transformation. Our commitment to you is to bring you some of the world's leading experts in the domains of fitness, wellness, coaching, and behavior change, separating fact from fallacy.
It's weird because the first time I ever got up on stage to do stand-up comedy was the second year at drama school. And I used to love Lenny Henry. And, you know, I'll be honest, I basically just stole a Lenny Henry sketch. And what I did was sort of take his rhythm of the way he spoke about things and used it in a different scenario. So I stole it, used it. I'm just admitting that was wrong. I know that was wrong, but I'd never done stand-up before, and we had
Cardinal sin.
Cardinal sin, yes, exactly. But I don't know if anybody else is familiar with Lenny Henry, but basically when I used to go out in Birmingham, my friend would be chatting guys up and she'd go, "Can you go and speak to this guy and tell him that joke?" And I would go in and sort of start chattering away. And one of the things I always used to do was I was driving in the car the other day, right? I got pulled over by the police. He said, "Can you identify yourself?" So I looked in the mirror and said, "It's me." He said, "Are you the driver of this vehicle?" I said, "Well, it's automatic, but I have to be here." Anyway, he didn't think the jokes were that funny. He pulled me over and he booked me. So he said I could make a phone call. So I phoned my uncle Jesmond in Jamaica because I hadn't spoken to him in ages. And that was the kind of level of thing that I used to do. And so I thought, right, how can I bring this into basically helping me not fail on the stage in stand-up? And I wrote this whole sketch about, I think it was about watching the TV and then the TV guy coming round to bust you, and you're trying to say, "I haven't got a TV," but you've got the Eiffel Tower sticking out the side of your roof and that type of thing. But it was all in the same rhythm. And that's what I had picked up, was that everything that he said was delivered in a rhythm. And it's so interesting because sometimes two people can deliver exactly the same material and one falls absolutely flat, normally mine.
Oh my God, yes.
But somebody else, if they get the rhythm right, the punctuation right, the timing right, you know, there's that craft, there's that art to it.
Oh God. So the other day I was speaking at a conference, and two of the other speakers were like really good friends and colleagues of mine. So they're like, "Do you maybe want to introduce the other speakers?" It would be my absolute honor. Now, I don't know what happened. I feel like I came back from Australia and it was one of those, I got really cocky. Like, I don't even have jet lag. Like, I didn't struggle with jet lag in Australia, where every evening at about 1800, I would start to feel a little bit wobbly. And then 30 minutes later, completely smashed. But from the time I woke up throughout the day, I was okay. Like, for flying halfway around the world, I was all right. Coming back, I felt amazing. I was like, wow. Landed on Sunday, went back to work 5 a.m. on the Monday, thought, I'm crushing it. Yeah, be careful, because on the weekend, it was almost like a train where the front trolley stops abruptly and every other trolley comes smashing into it. That's how my brain and body felt. And then I think I slept 2 hours before the night of the conference, and I was delirious. And I got up and I thought, you know, I'm going to mix in some humor and some jokes into the introductions. This is going to be great. And like, I would start to tell a joke and then forget that I was telling a joke and just abandon it halfway through and go on to something else. And then I would tell a few jokes that in my head were so funny. And the room would just stare at me. And yeah, all right. So I was really tired, exhausted, wasn't in my right mind. But I think part of the problem is I got up and decided in the moment to be funny. And that is a very bad mistake, because you don't have that rhythm. It's not like when you're speaking, all of a sudden naturally things start to come up that are funny, and you're in that rhythm. So your timing lands perfectly. My timing was just so off. You know, I even tried to make jokes because my boss got up to introduce me, and like, I just love her. I really do. And she had said something about me that really moved me. So I tried to make a joke, but it just seemed like this really awkward confession where I was blaming her for my worst life decisions. It was just, and then, all right. And then I just went into talking about Volkswagen. And it was
So what did she say that led you to Volkswagens, or was that just random?
Oh no, Volkswagen was part of my talk about what happens and like looking at different organizations and what supports high performing team dynamics and what gets in the way. She had said, oh, you know, I'm going to introduce Bobby. He's one of my favorite people in the world. I was like, oh my God, I'm one of your favorite people in the world. Like normally, like I think, oh, that's nice to say. But with her, it just made me all emotional. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to take the piss. I'm going to give it back to her. I don't want to be like too warm and fuzzy. So I'm going to do this wrapped in humor. The only problem is nobody else in the room found it humorous. So I feel like I was talking about this yesterday in a meeting. The more you try to do something, it's this thing about trying. The more you try, the more the thing you're striving for is going to evade you because you're not in the room. You're not present. You're trapped in your own head. So whatever's happening in the room with the audience, if you perceive it at all, you're perceiving it out of time. Like you're perceiving where the audience was not 300 milliseconds ago, but probably 10 seconds ago, which is an eternity when timing and performance is critical. So it's almost like I want to do stand-up comedy again. I want to do a couple of open mic nights. This time, going in there, not trying to bomb. I don't need to try that. I'm really good at it. Like I could crush that shit. But going in there, being so open to if I do die on stage, that's amazing because that's a learning experience. And that in and of itself is funny, if only to me.
Yeah.
If not infuriating to the people in the audience. I think you have to step in there. Like I work with someone who is always teetering on speaking, but it's like, I might say something wrong. I might misquote something. I might not have the most precision in my scientific references. It's like, It's not about that, first of all. Nobody's going to really remember or care. And to an academic, that's like saying your God is false. So that's a hard pill to swallow. Also, you are charming, like devastatingly charming. You're funny. You're intelligent. You've got all the right stuff. And you're going to have that in your head. Like there's this magical point where you're going to be ready at some point in the future to step out. You're setting yourself up for serious disappointment. Not just your disappointment. It's going to be nothing compared to the level of disappointment of the audience. And you're like one of 5 people that have more of the right stuff inside of you than anybody else I've ever met. It's just it's just a mental dynamic, isn't it?
So for Jasmine who's just arrived, Bobby's not talking about me because that sounded really glowing. It sounded lovely. Jasmine said earlier that she could listen to you for hours and then sort of realised that she dug a big hole in the private group. Well, I can listen to you too, Joe. But what you just said reminded me of a...
My wife would be like, yeah, just live with him for 3 days and then tell us what you think.
Oh, well, we all are like that within our own relationships, I think. A couple of things that made me think of Tim Galloway in a game of tennis, of what you were just saying, because one of my big problems I have is a massive ego. And I thought I didn't have much of an ego. But my ego is the one that says that was crap. You know, you spoke too fast. Everybody thinks you're stupid, blah, 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 blah. Or, I think Dave put this beautifully. My ego will wake me up in the middle of the night about 2:30 and then wants to talk to me for about 4 hours about how rubbish it was and how I should have said something else. and then I have to go, I thank you very much, but I don't need to know any of this right now. And Tim Galloway's book, The Inner Game of Tennis, is, as you know, is all about trying to keep the voice one quiet so that voice two can just let go and experience it and do it and find success. But you have to almost occupy voice one in order to perform. And so the two things that it reminded me of, and one was after doing stand-up comedy, I did it once again for charity, and then I hadn't done it for ages. And we went to Berlin, and there was an open mic night, and I knew that I was going to be doing an MC course and some stand-up comedy with John Hardy. And so I thought, well, I should just get up there. But I hadn't really got, a set together, but I just thought, well, can I just go up there? So kind of like toying between what you were saying about being prepared, but also then just going, oh, just go for it. Just what's the worst that can happen? Everyone laughs at me because I'm an idiot. Well, there we go. They've laughed and that's good then, or no one laughs and I walk off and cry. But so we're in Berlin.
But to be fair, you're doing comedy in Germany. So
I wish
stand-up's not hard enough.
I am not that, no. So no, but luckily it was a lot of Americans in there. But I went into this room, and I kid you not, this room was kind of very plain white, but then it had this aircon unit with, one of those really inappropriate kind of vents that comes down into the room from the ceiling. I mean, we were in Berlin, for Christ's sake. So I just put this into context. I've got my two kids with me. They've both been studying German history. We spent 2 days prior to that at Auschwitz walking around, and we're in this room that looks like something is coming through the ceiling. A gas chamber.
Okay, right. I probably shouldn't have had you spell that out. But yeah, get it.
So I'm there thinking, I can't believe that I've just seen that. But if I've seen that, so has everybody else. And I need to acknowledge it. And so that was like a really risky moment, whether I said that. But I came on and I just said, this room, it's da-da-da-da. And then I said, my kids are here and they are judging you. And so just like, I've just got to lean into it. And at this point, I thought I might be carried off, but luckily the rest of the set went better than your face on me talking about that. And it did actually land in a humorous way, and but it was just that I had to take, I don't know if you remember that within comedy, if you can use the surrounding, and the same with presenting, if you can go up on stage and you can use the scenario that you're in, because that is your stage, the audience is your stage, the whatever the surroundings are, and use that's improvisation. So even if it's a really poor joke or a really poor reference, it kind of has higher weight to it because it's come from the environment that you're in that moment. And that's what I'm going to convince myself. But I look like I'm losing a battle here, looking at your faces. You're like, I can't believe she did that. and I feel like I'm judged.
No, I mean, not like any of us are opposed to some good, wholesome gas chamber humor. But I think the look on my face is digesting what you're saying, because I think it's really useful. Going back to Dave Rosowski, one of the reasons why I wanted to work with Dave is because Dave called out my ego as well. Because you and I, we run the same racket. Our ego shows up as the critic. It's not this grandiose person that says, oh, you're so all important, because that's not socially acceptable, right? You'll look like a complete knob if you do that. We restructure it as, oh, I'm so horrible. Oh, that was the worst. The central focus is me. as if like I'm the most important person in the room. And when Dave had said that to me right prior to lunch on a Friday, before we had like, went out to Costa Coffee, it really hurt. And he's like, don't come back this afternoon if your ego is going to be too big to fit in the room. You've got a giant ego. It's not welcome here. He's like, I think he said something like, the person who walks in the room and constantly talks about how they're the worst performer is no different than the person who comes in, looks around the room, and automatically appraises himself as the most talented performer. Both of you are under the impression that this has anything to do with you. Like, serve the actor in front of you. What do they need? Right? Nothing to do with you. And I left, just stuttering, mumbling to myself, going through my typical Tourette pattern. And like, we're sitting in Costa Coffee, you, me, John, and it hit me. Oh my God, he's right. This guy is 100% right. I want to work with this guy. And I went back into the room, and it was just fabulous. And that ego completely gets in the way. It completely gets in the way of performing because you're not using the room. You're not even aware of the room. You're not even aware of the people in the seats. You're aware of the own narrative in your head. It's almost like a movie where the lead character is narrating. You're doing that. So how present are you? Like, how do you? It's hard to get around that because, like, in Australia, I felt, despite the fact that there was a lot of physical exhaustion involved, I felt like I wasn't really attached to the outcome, and I was able to be present, and I wasn't worried about how is this being received? Oh, is this going to offend someone? Is this the right thing to say? Is this the right way to phrase it? Because I've gone through that in the past 18 months, which is weird because that hasn't been the case 90% of the time in the past 2 decades. But the past 2 years, it's been ever present. And my results have showed. Like, I've rocked up, like, fully excited and engaged, and, got up on stage and spoke to people who are going through a lot. And this is a pivotal moment to make a contribution, and delivered something quite mediocre. And it's like, okay, what was the difference? Yeah. I'm not a different person in Australia than I am someplace else. And I'm definitely not in a better physical state. I haven't really slept in a few days. What's the difference here? The difference was I could be with the people in the room. They could be my main concern. That could be what was most real and present for me, rather than, oh my goodness, how are they going to interpret this? Am I going to say something that's going to land me in trouble? Where that's not the environment I was in. Just really taught a lot of lessons. I left Australia feeling really good, except for the fact I smashed my head in, had a really bad run in with a metal towel dispenser. But other than that, like,
they're bad. They are. Those. They come out, from nowhere.
Out of nowhere. Just thrown away something in a bin, brought my head up. And it's like, who put that there? Like, what a horrible place to put a metal towel dispenser.
Well,
I feel like I was set up.
Said there, though, is so multifactorial, isn't it? Like, we were talking about stand-up comedy. We've got listeners that are personal trainers, gym owners, operators, things like that. And it's on all of those levels that those things show up. And I think, when you're a newer personal trainer, you're so worried about the right rep range, the right set, the right weight, that it's hard to be present with the client that's actually there and what they like and what they don't like. And ultimately, they don't care and your muscles can't count. All they want to know is, will they survive? And will this person look after me? And yet the personal trainer is going through this whole, is it good enough? Does it meet the standards? Da, 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 da. So that, again, is that, how do you take that away? And then, yeah.
So one of my clients yesterday that I was speaking to, he was a competitive track athlete, really good one, right? And every time he was talking about like varsity and things like that, I kept thinking about like Tony Soprano didn't have the makings of a varsity athlete. So talk about trying to be present. He's telling me something really important, and I'm going through Sopranos reruns in my head. Probably not the best place to be. And he was saying this thing that was powerful about people who trained all year round. You know, obviously rest and recovery strategies mixed in with that. But all year they're focusing on getting better. And then there were the athletes who, like at the end of the off season, would be like, oh, I need to get my shit together and start training. And you can't make up for it. Like you could tell the people who have trained, you know, for a much longer period of time, and the people who should have been training but didn't and tried to cram physical training. Like physiology doesn't work that way. And their performance not only lacked, but the level of anxiety going in. And he was like, you know, anxiety is great. Like he would run with someone who used to throw up before every meet. And the coach knew once he threw up, he was fine. So we go, like, have you vomited yet today? All right, we'll go do that. Take care of that. And because he put so much emotional weight on it. And then once that happened, he was able to let go.
Yeah.
And I think when people are, I got to be prepared for a presentation, I think there's a misunderstanding of what preparation means. It's like trying to cram for an exam when you've not studied all semester. You're going to suck. You're not going to do very well. Like real preparation is where you could be in the audience at a conference. I've had this happen to me. And it's exciting and terrifying. And somebody says to you, you know, our speaker, something happened. Like their plane's been delayed. Could you go up and present on this subject? Now, if you don't know the subject, right, it's like chemical engineering. Okay, that's not going to go very well. But if it's within your wheelhouse, and it's like, well, how much time do I have to prepare? Well, we just got the call 10 minutes ago. You've got 10 minutes. And like jotting down 3 bullets on a napkin, if you can't go up and you can't present on that, you haven't prepared. So it's not staying up a week before and getting your bullet points on your PowerPoint and your deck and, does this video work? It's like every time you get up to speak, it's about having 5, 10, 20 years of preparation behind you and then letting all that shit go.
Yeah.
And just being in the audience. Okay.
No, totally. Remind me, I've got something to say on that. Jeff, you had your hand up. Do you have a question or did you want to add something?
No, I just well, I don't know you to for so long, both of you. But so far, what I can see, your mind is very quick. Both of your minds are very quick in react to things. Yeah. So
Mine's the ADHD.
I have a pretty disturbing caffeine addiction.
So I think that helps a lot when you are in any environment trying to pick up the things from the audience, if they are going a little bit quiet, you can pick up something over there to lift it up. Yeah. Sometimes in my side, when I'm on a stage, definitely I stop preparing myself what I'm going to do on a stage. Because when I go to the stage, I start reading the feeling of the people. So with the music, I started reading what the people are feeling with the music, and I started building the choreographies to that. So I stopped myself completely to organizing choreographies. Yeah. Okay, that's what I'm going to say.
That's something really important. Can we touch on that, Joe? I know you have something to say.
Yeah. Cool.
I think I do believe of innate talent. People talk about, well, there's no such thing as talent. It's about work ethic, and somebody with a high work ethic will outperform somebody with a high level of talent. And I think in a lot of cases that is true, but you need to explain someone who sits down at a piano for the first time and is able to play proficiently. Or a really good friend of mine, Tiffany Cook, who the very first time she did a sketch looked like she had gone to art school for 20 years, where the very first time I did a sketch, it was a stick figure and I still haven't grown in talent. And if I went to art school for 20 years, I would go from being hilariously bad to just, encouragingly mediocre. But I would never have been where she was the very first time she picked up a pencil. So there is something about innate talent and proclivities. However, I think having a quick mind in a certain context is about conditioning, and it's about practice. And it's about being present more than anything. Like some people, it's dance for them. And for me, if I tried to move fluidly, I'd probably fall flat on my face, which probably would have some entertaining value. But for other people, the music and the beat, that's what they're listening to, right? So a musician might not be able to read an audience on the stage, but that speaker cannot read and feel they're listening to that music the same way you're listening to your audience. And you can get better. It's almost a matter of like being on a first date. Think about the best first date you ever had. You didn't rock up and go, okay, so I've prepared some statements and I'd like to share them with you now. Oh, and I've prepared some dialogue and bullet points for you. You're welcome. It's going to be a very short first date. They're going to have a hilarious story to tell for years. But for the date's not going to work out very well. Yeah. But yet you're still in tune with that person. You were still in a sense of resonance. And when I'm talking about resonance, think about washing wine glasses the morning after a dinner party. And if you have two wine glasses that are exactly the same shape and dimensions and they're filled with water, you'll start to run your finger around the edges of one, right? Cleaning off the soap, and it'll start to vibrate and hum. But what you'll notice is the wine glass adjacent to it that you're not even touching will start to vibrate with the same frequency. And they're both humming. That's resonance. We all have that. It's the context, it's the environment in which you condition yourself to be good at that. I believe the vast majority of people can be not equally quick, but really fast and be able to read what's happening in a room with the right training.
I think what's great about what you just said there is it's very much like movement. And when we talked before about mental health, there's so many different mechanisms to it. And I think that it's interesting what you said about Tiffany, because without knowing what her upbringing was like, the things that she watched, the things that influenced her life, we don't know what was already there that she'd held on to, or maybe not, but I don't know that. And I think that on many things that you can practice and learn and give yourself a better opportunity, if you like, to grow in those areas. So I think that, for example, listening, you can grow the skills, you can practice, you can put them in different environments, the same as training. And then what we started off with talking about was the ego. And recently I went and played tennis, and here's the ego for you. I'm normally rubbish at tennis because I was the girl that when it was my turn to bat in rounders, I'd get so much pressure in my own head that I would miss it. And I was so excited for my turn to bat, and I went to play tennis, and I used to have the same thing because normally I would lie because I'd met some guy and I was going, yeah, of course I'll play tennis. Yeah, I play tennis. And then I'd get up there and all the pressure was on me because I lied and I'd never played tennis very much. So anyway, so I got up and I played tennis, and I was thinking about the inner game. And I was thinking about if I was an actress playing the role of a tennis player, where would my body be? And now I've learnt more about biomechanics and I understand where it should be, and the interesting thing was, without saying I was good or bad, my body positioning was better. The way I held my racket was ready for the ball. And I was able to say some things that were not judgmental, but were just factual. And so it wasn't like, oh, you're playing really well or you're playing really bad. It was just, oh, you didn't get that shot because you weren't in the position where your shoulder should be there to be able to step in and take that maneuver. And so I think that the reason I bring that back in is with strategy, with support, with experience, with environments, and tools to get rid of the ego when it's not serving us can be really useful in whatever area of life.
Definitely. So what happened with that guy that you were trying to impress, lying about your experience with tennis? What happened there?
Yeah, that didn't happen. Just like when I lied about being a ice skater, that really kicked me in the butt, because not only did I not get the date, I then lied on my CV as an actress. I got through the first round on my personality, and then we had an ice skating audition. So I went to Streatham Ice Rink in London, and for those of you that are old enough to remember, there was a show called Challenge Annika where she would do whatever it was and become Sport Billy in something, but they'd have sort of 4 weeks to get her ready. And I thought it was like Starlight Express. You could go and learn how to skate. So I went to Streatham Ice Rink Friday afternoon and said, here's the deal. I need to be ready for an audition on Monday for skate school for this. It was like the Gladiators, but Ice Warriors. And basically, you know, you were jumping around on ice. So I got on this, and I realized that I could go forwards. And with a little bit of preparation, I could stop, but only with my right leg. So I worked my ass off, literally Friday afternoon, all day Saturday, all day Sunday. Duncan came along and bought me some sandwiches at lunch break, and I was just like, okay, got to get back out on the ice. And at the end of the 2 days, the girls said, well, I don't know how the audition goes, but will you join the ice hockey team for us? Because you're so ballsy. You know, this is ace. So I was like, yeah, I'm an ice skater now. And I get to the audition, and they had this arm thing that spun around in the middle, and people were jumping over it and under it on their ice skates. So in my mind, I'm just going, just relax, you know, and float around all the things that my teacher had said, you know, and but I did it all at snail space, and I went round, and this Olympic speed skate went straight past me, and then the director went, oi, you, the blonde one, off. And he said, you said you're a social skater. You lied.
And that, boys and girls, is why you need to be honest and act.
Honesty prevails, yes. But at that moment, another girl went slam straight into the side, blood everywhere. And I was like, yeah, you're all right, actually. But he was so lovely. He did say, you know, if there was 6 more months to train me, I might be okay. But otherwise, I will die.
Yeah, you can't cram skating in a tightly packed weekend, can you? So a really, really good mate of mine, and they're married now. He first started dating this young lady who wanted to impress him. And he was like, let's go snowboarding. Have you ever snowboarded before? Not once. Yeah, I've snowboarded. Oh my goodness. Yeah, she left that weekend with metal rods and screws putting her arms back together. So, yeah. It's like you can't cram. You can't cram talent and skill development. Not at all.
Well, this did not go where I thought it was going to go today. We were going to talk about biohacking and biobollocks, but we've talked some, I think, really interesting things.
I think we kind of did, though, right?
Yeah.
I think this is kind of like adjacent to that topic. We've learned a lot.
Yeah.
Learned how to use your surroundings, how to be present with your audience. Like being good at tennis versus being in it for just the boys, the outfits, and the pims. So I think, we've taken away a lot from this so far.
If anybody's got any questions or anything they want to add or ask Bobby, and there was something that was just in my head, but that's flittering around now and I can't find it, it will come back. I don't know is the question to that. I think I will have to. I've probably been a little bit more slack at reminding everyone, so I need to do that for our next podcast.
Well, they've probably had quite enough of us.
Yes, well, I can be quite vexing, so.
You can, yes.
I was going to say something. What was it? Was it 10?
Hold on, I have it written down for you. Let me retrieve it.
Talk amongst yourselves and it might come back.
I always love that when somebody's like, well, what was I going to say? It's like, how would I know?
Well, within group exercise, I would say, Jasmine and Jeff, you learn all of those skills as well about interacting with someone in front of you, working the audience, like you would in stand-up. And Bobby, you've done this loads, but I haven't done it so much. And that is present when you're on Zoom and you can't see anyone.
I hate that.
It's just the weirdest thing because
I hate it too.
Yeah, I just like, I'm inventing in my head, it's going, they hate me. I'm like, they're not even there. I can't even see them. Like, how do you gauge that energy? Because I feel like, when you're in a room, that's much easier to do.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I have to imagine it. I have to imagine, okay, here's the person I'm speaking to. Here's what they're looking for. Because all you're staring at is blank screens with their microphones off.
If
so
you're
there's
lucky,
nothing you're really feeling. And in my mind, I'm like, they're having sandwiches right now. They don't even know what I'm talking about. I'm talking to myself in a room all alone. You would think that for a person who grew up with Tourette's, this would be like my strong suit, but it's kind of off-putting a little bit. I think when you have such a massive audience, that's expected. If you have several hundred people, thousands of people on a video call, they're going to show up with their mics off, their cameras off. If you have less than that, like less than 100 people, I think it's actually kind of rude. Not just to the presenter, but to other people, especially if it's an interactive type of forum, because if somebody walks up and they want to say something or ask a question or they want to share something and they're speaking to blank screens, there's no psychological safety there. I think it's like, if you're going to show up, put your cameras on, be there. And then there's the whole thing about learning and developing.
I did that in the lockdown with the Zoom teaching classes for all that period. And I say, please put your camera on to see what's going on, because I just feel like I'm doing, my personal training.
Yeah, you can't do that without a screen on, 100%.
And then there are those people like, please put your cameras on, and they just don't. And that becomes really uncomfortable because it's like, okay, I'm not going to address this twice because like, what's that going to feel like for the other people that are like rocking up for an experience? Whenever you're speaking, you're there to provide an experience. You're not there to, yes, you are there to provide information and tools and resources, but it has to be packaged in an experience that is designed to provoke and influence. If not, send an email. Don't waste everyone's time. And it's
these ones I've done recently, though, you didn't even have the opportunity to see people. It was one of those sort of webinars, and you're off topic. There you go. And I'm still in my little room, kind of. But it's you've
got to use your imagination in those situations, because if you're not speaking to someone, it's going to be a very different experience. Like it's like doing stuff on camera. right?
Yeah.
When I first started doing things on camera, it was brutal. And this is going back over 20 years ago, where I was speaking in front of audiences 3 times a week. So I thought, sure, we're going to make these videos. It was for the National Academy of Sports Medicine training videos. Yeah, turn the camera on. I've got this. As soon as I would see that little red light go on, like my brain would sit down and refuse. Like it would go on strike and refuse to work. I was like, why is this so difficult? It's like, yeah, there's no feedback. There's no purpose. There's no engagement. And after a while I learned, no, there is somebody that's going to be watching this. So I think even when you're in a large,
go, but we'll say goodbye, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate having you here, mate.
And I'm going to turn off the video. But actually, before I do, I think, Bobby, what you just said is brilliant. And I think I should have just said this before Jeff left. But Jasmine, I don't know if you agree, Bobby, but I think a really good thing to do is to commit to doing a short video every day that you film. And it doesn't have to be long, 5 minutes, 10 minutes or whatever. And you don't have to publish it. It doesn't have to go out live. It doesn't have to do it. But the more you do it, like you said, the more you can just be present within what you're doing, the more you can see the person that you're talking to or change the person that you're talking to and see what works. But you also notice the difference. So when you look, you might think you're absolutely shocking week 1, week 2, but by the end of that month, you'll see a change from week 1.
There's something you said there. There was a word, and it was person, not people. And that's really important. That's important within public speaking. That's important when you're on camera. That's important if you're doing a Zoom webinar to nobody, seemingly. Somebody's out there being impacted. I think when you show up as a presenter, it's like, I am speaking to my audience. You're feeling your audience because they are communicating with you through silence, which is often misinterpreted. Dead silence in an audience sometimes is a very, very good thing. It's sometimes more powerful of an indicator than laughter, than applause, because people are captivated and in sync with you. Other times, it's just like you're boring the shit out of people. You're like doing a seminar on how to cure insomnia in 30 minutes or less. You have to be able to tell the difference. You're like a dendrite. You're receiving all that information. But when you move into the role of an axon and you're communicating that information, you're not speaking to the audience. The audience speaks to you. You are speaking to a single individual. And let me explain that distinction, because how do you speak to a single individual in a room of 300 people? You do. It's just a mindset. And yesterday I was doing a keynote and it was a very large room, a lot of people, but the lights are on. You can see people. That's easier. And I'm just going to lock eyes with somebody for just about 3 seconds. Don't make it creepy. And then I'm going to move on and lock eyes with someone else. And I'm going to step back and not lock eyes with anyone. I'm going to feel what's coming back to me. I put something out there. I gave something. What's coming back to me at that moment? And when I go into any forum, I'm there for the one. I want to impact the one. Now, hopefully, there's many of those ones in an audience. But if you go there to impact the audience, you set yourself up for a lot of psychological traps that create barriers to actually doing that. If you show up for the one, you're more likely to impact the many. Does that make any sense? Because I know it seems a little bit weird.
No, totally.
Like if someone's not been in that, and that helps you when you're on camera. Okay, I'm speaking to the one right now. There's all blank screens, or I'm in an auditorium. I can't see anyone. It's a sea of blackness. All I can see is like the administrator in the front row telling me, be conscientious about time. Everybody else is just blacked out. But I know there's the one person there that I am connecting with, you know? So that does help if it's like, well, what do you do with that?
something I watched the other day as well that I thought was absolutely spot on. And that was that if you're presenting, and it could be the same for delivering a session, for that person to like you, go have therapy, get that shit sorted out. Because I just actually, that resonated. That's really good, because it's not about do they like me, because that's the ego. Like you said, it's speaking to.
Okay. I misunderstood. Okay, I totally get that.
You know, yeah. Sorry, my dog wants to go on then, Lola. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a serious mind trick.
Can I ask a question? It's about the difference between being in front of a camera and being in front of an audience. In Group X, you kind of do need people to like you, so they come back every week to your class. And so that makes it different to when you're recording or when you're on a webinar. That's just a one-off.
That's an important insight, because when we think about rapport, which I think the best definition of rapport I've heard, it is a relationship of positive responsiveness. It's two people or a group of people that are in response to one another. And I can't think of a better example than group exercise, when people have to be in responsiveness to one another, right? But if someone is completely disgusted by you, right? I've had that feedback on evals. Thanks, Mom. Last time I sent you an invite. It's that can get in the way. I think it's more about resonance than it is about liking. You know, like I really like one of my neighbors down the hall. I would not entrust them to lead me in a group exercise class. There have been group exercise instructors that I know personally, just from being a consultant in health club chains, where not everyone who took their class liked them. Sometimes they were just like a little bit put off by them, but man, do they love engaging with them. And it's kind of like my wife and I were talking about this yesterday. She was talking about when you're married to someone who you really love, but you don't like them. I was like, are you trying to tell me something? Like, is it me? And it's like, no, she was talking about a couple that is they're there for each other. They're a strong unit, but it's like, I suspect she doesn't like him very much, but she loves him. It's a dynamic relationship. But what I do know, and I think Joe is trying to say, is liking is something that emerges out of the value that relationship represents. It's like, oh, this person, they add to my life in so many ways, but oh, what a toss-up. You know, that doesn't happen that often. I think liking is a consequence. If it's an aim, you're going to be seeking approval, and in seeking approval, you're going to miss the things that make those connections that not only result in liking, but the point of the class, which is engagement for sustainability, creating long-term behavior change. You miss it. The more you aim for that target, it's kind of like, so here's a great story. Years ago in the Olympics, Winter Olympics, there was Matt Emmons, who one of the greatest marksmen, shooters in the world, and he was competing for the American team, and he was so good that towards the end of the competition, he was so far ahead of everyone else. All he had to do was shoot and hit anywhere on the target. It could have been completely off of the bullseye, and he was going to win a gold medal. But that, when you get to that level of excellence, that's not your personality, is it? Because it's your dedication to excellence that puts you there in the first place. So he wanted to hit the bullseye dead center. So he aims, right? He calms his mind. He exhales, squeezes the trigger, bang, hits the bullseye dead center. And with that, he went to last place in the competition. Now, if you're listening to this, it's like, okay, it sounds like Bobby forgot to pay his brain bill last month. How is it he's so far ahead in the competition? All he has to do is hit the target anywhere. He gets a gold medal. He hits it bullseye, dead center. He goes to last place in the competition. He was so focused on hitting the bullseye that he was aiming for the target in the next lane over. He hit his competitor's bullseye, not his. He was aiming for the wrong target. I think like when we aim for something like likability so hard, we might hit it, but we're completely missing the target, if that makes sense.
It reminds me of the Dr. Frankl quote, ensue rather than pursue. So if it's, you know, in conclusion of that people like you, but if you're pursuing being likable, that's when we go back to the ego getting in the way.
And those were his insights after being a prisoner in 4 different concentration camps over a span of his life lasting nearly 3 years. That's that quote that Joe's talking about. If you pick up the book, Man's Search for Meaning, which is a powerfully impactful read. Early in the book, he shares one of his insights that success, like happiness, cannot be pursued. It must ensue as an unintended side effect of one's personal dedication to a cause greater than oneself.
And I think there's no more to be said after that. I mean, that is just a line, isn't it? It's just, if you haven't read it, Jasmine, it's a really impactful book.
Cool.
Incredible book. I didn't mean to say you can't say anything after that. It sounded like, right, done. But that is a fantastic book. It's kind of brought everything together, really.
Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Visit us at theselfhelpantidote.com to share your feedback, insights, and recommendations on what topics you'd like us to explore in the future.